do you think it's a good idea that Biden will reverse the Muslim ban? Yes, that's a good idea. The question we have, and I think this is the main thing, is that at least according to the NPR poll, and I know there are differing numbers, and I knew this anecdotally, and I've said this here before on the show, that there are a lot of Muslim people who were sympathetic to Trump, to Donald Trump. Just like people in all kinds of minorities. I mean, this is a guy who said Mexicans are rapists, right? And he it's called an American judge. He's like, oh, he's Mexican. He's not going to vote in my favor. He would say things like that. And more Latinos voted for him than they voted for any Republican candidate before. Over 1 in 3 Muslims voted for him, even though he said he wanted to ban all Muslims from the United States back in 2015. More black people voted for him, but even though it was still a minority, it was about 12%.
That's the key point. It's still a minority. People are like, hey, look at this. Trump has so much support for black people. And I'm looking at it as like, it's still a minority. Like, yeah, it's a higher percentage, but that doesn't prove like, oh my God, look, he's so popular among black people now. Like, it's still a minority.
Yeah, but there is an authoritarian mindset. There's some people who find the authoritarian thing appealing, right? So there are just in terms of values, a lot of times people in minority communities tend to be more socially conservative, and this kind of talk reverberates with them. There was an article, Armin, I read in the New York Times, which I think is the best explanation I've ever seen about it. Is it talked about honor culture, not in the Muslim world, but in places like where there's a big manufacturing class population, like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, places like that, where there is an honor culture specifically amongst men, where if you're confronted with something or someone insults you, you have to fight back. You have to stand up for yourself. You're not going to take any SHIT from anyone, including YouTube, when they tell you not to swear, right? You're not going to do any of those things. You're going to stand up. You're going to go push back, and you're going to fight back and defend your honor and defend your self-respect and your dignity. Right now, do you remember that video of Joe Biden when he told the guy who said that you are going to take away all our guns, and he's like, hey, no, you're full of the word. You're full of it, right? He said, and he swore, and then he had a confrontation with him. So that is the kind of thing people tend to appreciate and respect there, even if the person is wrong. And this is, what the article was talking about. And that thing that they have, that kind of honor culture and the honor mentality, is something that is very common, right, in a lot of these minority communities, in Black communities, in Muslim communities, in Latino communities, right? And that is something that has been shown.
Why do you think the Muslims voted for him more this time than last time?
So I'll tell you anecdotally why, and this is what people in my extended family say, right? That why they like him, right? And first of all, his financial economic policies, businesses, like, so Muslims tend to be in the United States, unlike France and Europe, in the United States, Muslims tend to be more financially successful, and they tend to be higher earners than the average population, the general US population. So they're sort of upper tier. They make a lot more money. They want to save more on their taxes, right? So that's one of the main reasons that they do it. The second thing is, I think, the honor culture thing. They like the fact that he sticks it to the man, and that he stands up for him. That he fights back, right? They like that, appeals to them, like the ego and the honor aspect, right? That's the second thing. I think those are the reasons. One thing I've noticed is that everybody in my friends and family circle who's Muslim, where they have the Trump conversations, it's the men who always like Trump, and it's the women who always dislike him. So there is a sort of a gender gap as well. So if you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, where you have, the different needs people have, the bases like food and water and shelter, and then in the middle there's like economic stability, and then at the top of the pyramid there's self-actualization. So a lot of sort of first generation immigrants who come here to the West, they look at economic opportunities, right? Because that's something that they found lacking. They find that, and they think that they're basically at that third tier, right? And but people who've been here for several generations, they've gone beyond the economic opportunity, right? They kind of think of it as a sort of given. Most people are generally okay in a first world country. So now they're thinking of other things like social awareness, right? Morality, ethics, and doing the right thing, creating a good, safe environment for kids, treating animals, say, in a good way, all that stuff. And that's something that I don't think a lot of first generation immigrants have gotten to.
We still didn't answer Bulbul's question.
Oh no, the answer is yes. It's a very good idea that Biden will reverse the Muslim ban. Very good idea.
Yeah, but she wants to know the reason. Okay, so first of all, I always think it's a very bad idea to have any immigration policy based on any general country or religion as a whole. Like that is such a blanket, ban is just such a bad idea. Even when it comes to most Muslims, for example, are just nominal Muslims anyways, right? It needs to be like, even when you want to screen for, even if you want to screen for certain people coming to your country, I think it should be based on values. Like if you are worried about the type of people that are going to Europe and stuff, you might think like, well, I'm in values, Islam is a value. Yeah, but again, the name Muslim is just so nominally used as a label on people that it's not going to be a very accurate way of banning an entire. First of all, it's very anti-secular to use a religious label, or I know like Trump pretends like it wasn't, but like having a Muslim ban as a whole is it's anti-secular, right? And also it's not going to really screen for those values that you're against, right? You could very easily not betray secular values and still stop the people that you want to stop, by saying, yeah, we're not going to accept any homophobes. We're not going to accept any misogynists. We're not going to accept anyone who doesn't stand for secular values. We're not going to accept anybody who is anti-free speech. And I know you can say, well, people can lie. Well, people can lie about religion as well, right? But you could go have even tougher screening processes by saying not only you should have no record of being anti these values. You actually have to prove that you have a record for fighting for these values as well. Like that would be like really tough screening process, right? And I think like some people might think that's too tough. But I think like, no, that is not. I think that is a very good screening process to have. To be like, you have to prove that you actually fight for these values for us to admit you, and you can have zero mention of religion in your screening process, and that will already be extremely tough for so many people to pass. And that's not anti-humanitarian, because you might think like, wow, okay, that's really tough, a very tough screening process. Like people are not going to get in. It could be like, we're going to accept this many people in, right? Your numbers are not going to change. And just because somebody didn't manage to pass your screening criteria, that means somebody else got in because this person got in. Like as a whole, you're still helping the same number of people, right? And you could also be if you also add like education and skills to your screening criteria, that's going to be really hard for radicals or problematic people to be able to, like, it's not going to be 100, a tight, like, doesn't mean that nobody's going to step through. But if you have these screening criterias, it's going to reduce it by significant amount. And you might think that these kind of screening is going to be very expensive, but it's going to be a lot less expensive than the consequences of letting the wrong people in, right? So that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's the other problem. The thing I'd add to that is that when you talk about a Muslim ban, how do you define Muslim? Right? For a lot of people, if you look at, and I've said this here before, if you look at Gallup or Pew Research, according to them, Armin and I are Muslims. According to them, like my daughter is Muslim, right? Because we came from Muslim families, right? Our parents registered as Muslims. That's how they define us. All ex-Muslims are classified as Muslims according to them. If you're doing it by country, like the Trump Muslim ban does, right? is that it takes certain countries and just bans people from those countries who happen to be Muslim, unless they can show that they're Christian or something else. Hey, when you have that, you are. We talked about how Iraq has, 7% of people in Iraq say they're confirmed atheists. 7%, and this is about 6 or 7 years ago. It's probably grown, right? To all of those people, when you do a Muslim ban, though they're considered Muslims. Right? I wouldn't be here. Armin wouldn't be here. Faisal Matar wouldn't be here. Like so many Ayan Hirsi, like none of these people would actually make it. If Fareed Zakaria, he wouldn't be here. The guy who developed this coronavirus vaccine from Pfizer. So you probably heard about this. Pfizer has announced that their coronavirus vaccine, which is going to be revolutionary, right? It's an mRNA vaccine. Has a higher than expected efficacy rate of 90%, which is crazy. Like that's well beyond what was expected. And the guy who did it, Dr. Sahin, is Turkish Muslim. Right? So you can't, like when you say Muslim ban, it's just a really dumb way of going about screening. It is the most basest, most stupid and basic kindergarten way of doing things, rather than being more focused and more surgical.
I mean, to be fair to it's easy to European countries though. It's easier for Canada and United States to get higher quality Muslims, given that they have an ocean between them and Islamic countries. So you already get like the people that come, Muslims that come to your country as Canada and United States, they have to buy plane tickets, right? They can't just it's so much easier. They just can't like hire smugglers to get on boats and just show up in masses on your borders, right? They can't do that, right? So you're already getting people that have to apply for visas. Like you don't have to. There's not masses of people showing up at your shore without going through any legal process that you have to take in. And not only they are forced to go through a legal process of applying for visa. They also have to be upper class for them to be able to even afford to buy a plane ticket to come to your country. So they're like, even before you screen them, they're already screening themselves. And, so that's why Canada and United States already is getting a much better quality of Muslims already before they even start doing the screening process themselves.
But there's another thing with Canada and the United States, and that's a good point. There's also another thing that just when it comes to integration, right? The US has a very different system. You can't come to the US and just get on social assistance, and because the social assistance alone provides you with housing and food and healthcare and everything, which is way more than anything you had in your home country, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can send my kids to school. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to talk to my neighbors. I don't have to integrate. I don't have to understand anything. I don't even have to learn how to speak the local language because it's good. Like that does not happen in the US. Whoever comes to the US, they have to eventually integrate. They have to, this is the libertarian thing again. They have to make their own way and start building their own life and earning their own income, and they have to interact and integrate into the society. That's a big thing about the US. Like with all immigrants, Muslim or otherwise, they need to become part of it. In a lot of places in Europe, they don't need to. They've got social democratic systems, which I like, but this is one of the downsides. They just discourage integration. Now, Norway, for instance, has a really good plan of integration where new immigrants who do come from some of these sort of more patriarchal and, Muslim majority countries and cultures, they are given integration classes, just like in the US and in Canada, people are given, okay, learn English so you can get employment, learn how to get these sort of training programs, orientation programs that help them adjust to the new society. So Norway also has one that is based on values. This is how we think of women in our country. This is how we think of individual liberty. This is what you should do when you find somebody who disagrees with you on something. And this is what you should not do. Those kinds of things are, and especially younger people, like what Macron is saying, is start instilling these values like early in school. It should be part of people's education.
I can before I address Bobo and Alex's comment, I do want to say that I follow a lot of Muslim fundamentalists, and a lot of them wanted Trump to win. American Muslim fundamentalists, and the reason they hate the Muslim fundamentalists, they hate the Democratic Party because no,
yeah,
not because of that. Mostly because of the things that they do inside America. Because they think that the Democratic Party is getting close to organizations like CARE or Linda Sarsour or Ilhan Omar and these fake Muslims, as they see it, like trans-friendly, gay-friendly, Western. Like, I know a lot of people here think like Linda Sarsour is kind of like a Muslim fundamentalist or whatever, but not to the eyes of these Muslims. These are Western approved versions of Islam that is much worse, that the Democratic Party is doing to Islam something that is worse than dropping bombs on Muslims in their eyes, right? Like, they would rather Muslims die than Islam be changed like this, right? So they think that there are a lot of fake Muslims who are that are basically, the Democratic Party is seeing them as a group of people that they could appeal to, and these Muslims, in order to be influential and accepted by the Democratic Party, are accepting values and advertising to Muslims in the United States that they should also accept values, that they should modernize in a way that is basically advertising something that is not Islam at all to Muslims. So if they think that they're losing Muslims in America, it's that they think like, what Ali, can you reduce my audio because I'm hearing echo? They think like the Muslims in America are being told that they need to change, they need to modernize, they need to get with the rest of the world instead of how it should be. They saying like, Islam doesn't need to change. The world needs to change. They say they think Islam is not the problem. Islam is the cure to modernity. And these fake, pathetic, moderate, liberal Muslims are giving in to all the seduction and temptations by the Democratic Party. They're like basically selling the dunya for akhirat. Right? They're selling this world. They're being tempted by the Democratic Party. Like, hey, do you want power? Do you want influence? Do you want us to, take you seriously? Do you want us to give you seats in positions of power in government? That's what the Democratic Party is doing to Muslims. In return for what? In return to acting like being gay is okay, acting like being trans is okay, acting like women putting makeup is okay, dancing is okay, music is okay. They're like, no, the Republican Party is like, they like bomb Muslims as that's better than you ruining Islam like this, right? So this is what the fundamentalists think, and this is why a lot of fundamentalists hate the Democratic Party more than they hate the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like it's also the Republicans, like they also kind of speak their language in a way. They're pro-life, pro-death penalty, pro a lot of the things. Like the Republicans, and especially with the Trump people coming in, like anybody who burns a flag should go to jail. Anybody, those kinds of things are actually that mindset. Even though for them it's not the flag, it's the Quran, right? But for them, like that mindset of the Republicans, the authoritarian, or I shouldn't say the Republicans, but like especially with Trump, right, in the last 4 years, this idea of, he wanted to have military parades, he wanted to, jail people for burning the flag. He talked about the Constitution like it was a holy book. He was talking about guns.
And they complain about the same things. They complain about men being women, women being men. They're like, yeah, you guys are speaking our language. They look at the liberal Muslims in the United States. They're like, you guys are like using they're looking at their Twitter bios of these liberal Muslims. They see he, him, she, her, they, their, like, what the hell is wrong with you? And these Muslim fundamentalists, and they look at Republicans and they're like, they are calling that out as ridiculous. They're like, these Republicans, as much as we hate them, we get they are speaking our language, right? So they can relate with that a little bit more. So, but
everything, the way he'll talk about women. He's got 3 wives. He's got like 5 kids, and he's just the whole thing is actually very, very, and then the whole thing is very similar. Like that, the parallels, because people ask me all the time. They say, well, if you are against Islam, why are you against Trump? And I'm thinking, how would I not be for one? If I'm against one, of course I'm going to be against the other. Like the language, the mindset, the way that they present themselves, the fear mongering, right? The lying, the open, going out and saying, I don't trust this, I don't trust it. Putting Steve Bannon saying that this guy Dr. Fauci should be beheaded.
By the way, YouTube, please, if this gets a strike, and if a human ever looks at this video, we're describing other people's values, okay? Here at Secular Jihadists, we are pro-trans rights, we're pro-gay rights, we're against violence, we want people's heads to be attached to their shoulders. Please don't be moronic. We're just describing other people's values, and we are against all of them, okay? We're saying what other people think. We ourselves are very much against these values, okay? If this gets a strike, if a human actually looks at this, we're just telling our audience what other people's views are, okay? And we are against those views.